Sir, what a pleasure and what an honor to introduce you to Mysoreans. You're not new to Mysoreans, but yes, today it's an important day. You can see the gathering here. Dr. Devdutt Pattanaik, a medical doctor by education, a mythologist, a leader, a leadership trainer. Trained to be a doctor, he spent 15 years in the healthcare and pharmaceutical industries and worked briefly with Ernst & Young as a business advisor. I would like to mention about one of the 41 books Dr. Pattanaik has authored. Hope I'm not wrong. For 50, I stand corrected. The book name is Indian Approach to Management, Business Sutra. Let me just tell you, I was talking about this in one of our meetings, and a lady by name Prithvi. She said, Sam, I've almost finished that book, the Business Sutra. Come on, that is Mysore. Now, I was fascinated by this book after reading the review at the Economic Times. The reason being, when the modern management is based on stories from Bible, why not the Indian management be based on Purnas? I'm sure you all will agree with me that time has come for Indian IIMs and management schools to adopt to the way Dr. Pattanaik thought and wrote in this book. I'm sure the management gurus will appreciate this. Sir, we really appreciate your thoughts. Dr. Pattanaik writes on the relevance of mythology in modern times, especially in areas of management, governance, and leadership. He has authored 50 plus books and over 1,000 columns. He's a consultant to large corporations on culture, diversity, and leadership. I recommend the audience to listen to his TED Talk India 2009. He has put mythology in the spotlight, undeniably a twist. Dr. Pattanaik appears on various TV shows, including Business Sutra on CNBC-TV18 and Devlok on Epic TV. Star TV has already consulted him for mythological teleserial like Mahabharata and Jaya. Devdutt's interpretation of mythology will enthrall, surprise, or shock you. We are honored to have you here with us, sir, today. I, on behalf of Mysuru Literary Forum and Charitable Trust and the book club members, welcome you, sir. Welcome this master storyteller to the Mysuru Literary Festival. Thank you and welcome you all.
Okay, good afternoon. I can see it's very, very hot, right? This is what happens, because whenever you're going to talk about Ramayana, then Hanuman comes. I request if the hotel can just sort of lower the temperature a bit or something. Hopefully in 5-10 minutes things will be sorted out. Yeah. So I'll just start now. Whenever I do a Lit Fest, I talk about one book. Today I'm going to talk about a book called Ramayana versus Mahabharata. It was published a few months ago by Rupa Publications. And everybody says, Devdutt, why would you write a book called Ramayana versus Mahabharata? Why do you have to use the word versus? Why don't you just write comparing or something? I said, no, this is inspired by Arnab. Because, see, I didn't even have to tell his surname, right? So I just said Arnab and you knew who I was talking about. You visualized the battle scene. You saw Ramayana on one side, you saw Mahabharata on the other. And I said, okay, fine. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to compare these two stories For various reasons, because I've been studying and working on these epics for 20 years, telling the stories differently. Can I request? No. There's a lot of conversations going on here, so yeah, thanks. So when you're telling the story Ramayana and Mahabharata, and everybody asks me this first question: did it really happen? I'm sure even after this somebody will ask me. So I call this question Sanatan, timeless. They'll keep asking. No matter what you tell them, they will not listen. Now, really the problem comes with the word itihasa. And itihas in regular word means history. But history as the subject that we talk about today is less than 150 years old. So you ask any history professor, when did the subject history begin? They will say 150 years ago. Before 150 years ago, whatever you said was history. Happened in the past, happened in the past, happened in the past was history. But in Sanskrit, the word itihasa is very different. They always use the word itihasa, Purana. And this word is found even in the Shatapatha Brahmana. So it is found for the first time in Shatapatha Brahmana. So we find this word almost 2,800 years ago, the word itihasa Purana. And what it means is, you know what is special about Ramayana and Mahabharata, which is not there in the Puranas? The author of Ramayana participates in the Ramayana. Valmiki is a character in Ramayana. The author of Mahabharata participates in the Mahabharata. Vyas is a character in the Mahabharata. So when they are writing the story, they are saying itihasa. It so happened because I saw it. I experienced it. Puranas are no character participates. They have heard from others. So these are stories I heard from other people. I have not witnessed it. That is the difference in Sanskrit between an itihasa and a Purana. So Ramayana and Mahabharata is Vyasa Valmiki. Purana, although they say it comes down from Vyasa, it is Markandeya talking about it. There are so many rishis talking about it. But generally, Purans are stories where the storyteller says, I have heard it from someone else. There is no participation. So it's reportage. Reportage. I am present there. Itihas. Okay. So that is the story. Now people keep asking me, how old is this epic? We really don't know. We really don't know. From an archaeological point of view, we know that the Gangetic Plain had a thriving civilization 3,000 years ago. How do we know this? Because we have pottery in that period from that region. Other than that, we have nothing. What do we have is literature, stories, which were obviously written much later. But what is interesting is, when you study a book and say, when was Ramayana written? Not when it occurred. They're two different things, which you will be surprised how many people don't get this point. The story actually happening and writing about it is very different. Today we can write about events which took place 50 years ago. Doesn't mean we witnessed the events which happened 50 years ago or 100 years ago. So somebody wrote the story, and when you go ask people, when was this written? Most historians will agree it happens between 300 BCE and 300 AD. So they're giving you a large range of 600 years, which means we are not able to figure it out. But this is a very interesting period. Why is this period very important? So it is between the Mauryan Empire collapsing and the Gupta Empire rising. In this period, the Sanskrit texts are being written down. The Ramayana and the Mahabharata is being put down in writing, which means it is becoming important. This story, which may have been told for many centuries, we don't know. That is speculative. What do we know for sure is the texts are about 2,000 years old. Now, what is special about it? Both of them are being written simultaneously. They're writing simultaneously. It is the same time when the Dharma Shastras are being written down. It is the same time when the Jatakas are being written down. It is the same time when the Buddhist Pitakas are being written down. This is a very interesting period in Indian history. Because when you talk about the Mauryan period and the early period, you see most of the art is Buddhist. The earliest Buddhist art. But by the time you come toward the end of the period, most of the art starts becoming what we now recognize as Hinduism. You have the images of Shiva and Vishnu and Devi appearing more frequently. It's not that they were not there before, but it becomes more frequent. Clearly, India has gone through a transformation. And it is in the period of transformation that these two epics are being put down in writing. And when they are being written, so you're seeing something change. Some change is happening. What is this change that is happening? Is the question to ask. You have the Buddhist revolution. You have Dhammapada being put down. And what is the essence of Dhammapada broadly? Not detailed, broadly, you have the story of a great prince who gives up his family, his kingdom, his wife, his children, goes to the forest, discovers wisdom, becomes the awakened one, becomes the Buddha, comes back as a teacher. He doesn't come back as a son, he doesn't come back as a father, he doesn't come back as a husband, he doesn't come back as a king. He gives up everything and he tells his vision of the world is called Dhammapada. And many people are inspired by him. And the Sangha is being established. And then you have the bhikkhus, young men and women are giving up family life. So you have stories, of course, written later, for example in Tamil, called Mani Meghalai, of a courtesan who says, I don't want to be a courtesan, everybody finds me attractive, everybody wants to marry me, but I want to be a nun, a bhikkhuni. So they are talking about bhikkhus and bhikkhunis who are walking away from grama and nagara and going towards the vana to become, they going to the sangha, they want to give up worldly life. This is Dhammapada. At the same time, another group of person is writing the Dharma Shastra and saying, no, the point of life is not to give up the world. The point of life is to participate, engage with the world. So when you read the Dharma Shastras, they are obsessed with rituals. They will use the concept of rin, debt. You owe it to your ancestors to produce children. You owe it to the sages to study the Vedas. You owe it to your family to follow the vocation of your family. You have social obligations, family obligations, marital obligations, religious obligations, ancestral obligations, obligations. As long as you don't, if you don't repay the debt, you will not be free of debt. You will not get moksha. You won't get mukti. So you have to live, you have to do your dharma, not dhamma. Dharma. You have to do your social obligations before you discuss anything else. When you do your social obligation, you automatically become liberated. So it is not about becoming a hermit. It is about becoming a householder. Grahastha, samsari, not sannyasi. It is not about being a shramana. It is about being a grahastha. This is the big tension in India. To be or not to be a member of society, to be or not to be a monk. Lots of conversations happening, lots of schools of thought, and it is in this time that Jatakas are being written. And the Jatakas, you are repeatedly telling the story of how Buddha came to be. And you will hear stories of the Buddha in his past life, and the large narrative that we hear again and again is of compassion, kindness, detachment, giving things away, not being holding on to things, becoming the Buddha. So storytelling picks up. This is the time when India becomes the land of storytelling. The Jataka tales are being told everywhere. The bhikkhus, because how people don't understand philosophy. Dhammapada is difficult to understand, but stories are easy to understand. So Buddha Charita is being written by Asvaghosha. You have got the Jataka tales being told. They are being told in temples, in art. You go to the oldest temple, Buddhist stupas, you will find Jataka tales being told. Monkey stories, crocodile stories, trader stories, kings, queens, all kinds. But what is interesting in the Jatakas, 550 lives of the Buddha's past life, but not one of them is where he becomes a woman. He becomes an animal, he becomes a tree, he becomes a merchant, he becomes a king before he becomes Siddhartha Gautama. But never, ever does he take the form of a woman. And this is a point to remember. Because this is the monastic tradition. Shramana Parampara, Sannyasi, give up the world, and the world is represented. Please note the word representation. By women. Vivaha. Grahastha Jivan is marriage, and we are looking at women as home, household. So we really are talking to the men and saying, you should be part of the household or should you be a hermit? This is the big tension that is happening. It is the tension that you see in stories like Vishwamitra and Menaka. Menaka, Tapasvi is saying, I don't want to be part, I want to do tapa. What is tapa? Fire. Mental fire. What is an apsara? The word apsara comes from the word apsa, which means water. It is the conflict of fire and water. Without fire, without water. Now, fire and water is primal, right? You can't set up a village without these two things. If you don't have water, there cannot be a village. If there is no fire, there is no village. Fire represents now, in art, fire becomes the male, water becomes the female. The next level, water becomes the householder, grahastha jivan. Therefore, Abhishek rituals are so important. If you see the temple art, you will see a lot of Purana Kumbha, pot, overflowing with food, grain. Very, very important. Pot. Everywhere in the temples. So, Apsara and Tapasvi are fighting. When you read the stories of Agastya Muni, the ancestors say, produce children, bas kiya tumne, tapasya, stop. Get married. Lopa Mudra, even today Indian parents are get married. Solution to all of life's problems. Just get married. Remember the tension happening at that time. Your sons are saying, no, I want nirvana. I want to go to the house, I want to give up my hair like the Buddha, I want to give up my robes, the jewelry, I want to wear simple robes and sit in the Sangha and meditate. And the father wants to slap him. Shadi karo. If you read the Vinaya Pitaka, you will hear stories of wives coming and begging their husbands to come back. You will have stories of fathers protesting to Buddha. All kinds of tension in society. Now see the Ramayana and Mahabharata in this context. Now you see Ramayana is the story of a prince who lives in a palace. Politics forces him into the vana, and then he comes back to the palace for Pattabhishekam. And then his wife is sent to the forest. And his children come back. So see the movement of my hand. Buddha's movement was this, but he comes back with not as a son, not as a husband, not as a father. Ram comes back as a son, a father, a king. But then again the wife leaves, the children come back. Look at the Mahabharata. The Pandavas are born in the forest. Then they go to Hastinapur. They are born in the forest. Then they go to Hastinapur. And when they go to Hastinapur for their family, they want their property rights. The brothers burn the house. And they have to escape back into the forest, hiding. Because their cousins don't want to give them property. Then they get married to Draupadi and they come back and they build Indraprastha, which they lose in a gambling match. And they go back to the forest. And in the forest, they wait for 13 years, and after Agyatavas, they come back for a battle. And then they win the war, they become kings. After that, they again go to the forest in the final stages, retirement. See the difference. Are you seeing the difference? These are stories of Grahastha Ashrama. The Dharma Shastras are difficult to explain to people. Ramayana and Mahabharata is easy to explain. The story may be ancient, but now it has a very purpose. Ramayana and Mahabharata both are playing the role of selling the ideas, marketing the concept of dharma. And by dharma they mean participating, engaging in material world. Get married, produce children, follow the family vocation, take care of responsibilities. Do the job you're supposed to do. When you're finished, when you have children and grandchildren, go to the forest. Become a bhikkhu. No problem. We don't want to feed you anything. See the journey. When does Dhritarashtra go to the forest? When do they go to the forest? When does Gandhari say it's time to go to the forest? When do the Pandavas say it's time to go to the forest? When does Dasharatha say it is time to go to the forest? It is Ashubha, Amangala, when Ram goes to the forest in his youth. Because you're a king, Raja hai. You can't be a sannyasi now. And suddenly you see the tension between thoughts. Two schools of thought fighting what is the correct way to live. Should young men become hermits or should young men function as kings? We are not taught the Ramayana and Mahabharata like this. We see them as individual epics happening in vacuum. But when you start seeing them in a historical context, you suddenly realize the meaning, the artha starts to come out. Now you realize these are books that are talking about Dharma Shastra, but by Dharma here they mean is samsarik jivan. And then the questions always asked are, but how will I get moksha? If I'm always doing household work and doing, Raja Dharma, doing this, Stri Dharma, Raja Dharma, Varna Dharma, Ashrama Dharma, Dharma, when do I get mukti, moksha? And then you have the concept of the Raja Rishi. And therefore you have Krishna's Bhagavad Gita, where it is like you participate and still you will get moksha. You don't have to give up anything. Now this is the philosophical basis of the Ramayana and Mahabharata. And you suddenly realize, oh, that's what they're doing. But then why two epics? Why not one? Why two epics? Why not one? One deals with Surya Vamsha, the other deals with Chandra Vamsha. And these are the two great, whenever you see the image of the goddess or god, they'll always have a sun and the moon. Why is it important, the sun and the moon? In the old days, in the Vedic texts, you don't hear much of sun and moon. To be a Raja, you have to do Ashwamedha. You conquer the land, the horse goes, wherever the horse goes, that's your land. If anybody tries to stop it, you kill that person. Simple. That's how you become a king. Nowadays, you just do Ratha Yatras of different kinds. We need to ask this question. How do you become a king? Ashwamedha in the Vedic period. But by the time between the Maurya period and the Gupta period, something interesting is happening. Lots of people are coming from the northwest. And note, these are not Muslims. So when people say that Muslims came and all that, that's much later. These are the Yavanas. These are the Greeks, the Scythians, the Parthians, the Persians. They're coming in waves, the Hunas, the Gujaras. Lots of tribes are coming, Shakas. They're coming into India in large numbers and they're mingling, they're staying back. Some of them are staying back. And they want to be the local kings. But they don't know what to do. How do you become a king? One method is you support a Sangha. So some of the earliest king in India, like Ashoka, will support, because the villagers respect Buddhism, they respect a Sangha over there, they have a stupa there. So he says, I will support this religious establishment, and that's how the king becomes powerful. Everybody says, we like you, because I am the guardian of Dhamma. So that's one method. I am the guardian. So everybody loves Dhamma, I'll protect Dhamma. Or you have kings like Kharavela in Odisha. When you read the inscriptions, he is the protector of Jainism. So he has like a Basadis of Karnataka. Karnataka is full of these lovely monasteries. And you ask, they could not survive without royal support. And it's very difficult to say what comes first. Does the king come first or do the monks come first? In all probability, it is the monks, because they would walk to these dangerous places because they kept walking. Remember, India is a land made of pilgrims. And the first pilgrims were who? These were the bhikkhus, these were the digambars, these were the rishis. They traveled and they traveled. And of course, now we simplify it as Buddhism, Jainism, Hinduism. But in those days, very complex. There were many kinds of rishis, munis, traveling. And some of them settled. The big ones were Buddhists and Jains. And the kings said that we will support, we will be the protectors, we will be the guardians. And therefore, Chakravarti becomes the concept because the stupa is in the center or the basadi is in the center, and then you have highways going in every direction, which is like the form of a wheel. So Chakravarti. So Buddhism talks of Chakravarti, Jainism talks about Chakravarti. Now the Brahmins come with a different model of kingship. How to become a king? Do you have ancestry connected? So the Shakas come and say, how do I become? No, you're Mlecha. But he says, no, I can trace my ancestry to the sun, solar dynasty. I can trace my ancestry to the moon, lunar dynasty. Two major schools, rivers start to flow. So Ikshvaku and the Aida. The two big rivers, and therefore Ramayana satisfies one group, Mahabharata satisfies the other group. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is Ramayana and Mahabharata complement each other. If Ramayana is talking, remember we're talking about dharma. Now dharma and rules are often confused with each other. Rules are niti and riti. Dharma is a point of view, a thought. It's a thought. Now what does dharma mean? One of the things which is most important right from the Shatapatha Brahmana is a concept called Matsya Nyaya, law of the jungle. So in the forest, the might is right. In society, if might becomes right, we use the word arajakta. In our society, if might is right, then we will say arajakta. And look at the word arajakta, where there is no king to establish dharma. So dharma is the opposite of Matsya Nyaya. That's the simplest definition I can give you. I mean, there are complex layers to it, but remember, might is right is equal to jungle, but when the mighty help the meek, when you help the helpless, in the forest nobody helps the helpless. In the van, nobody helps the helpless. But in the grama, the strong are supposed to, they may not, but they are supposed to take care of the weak, and that is dharma sthapana. Simple definition. So dharma sthapana, you need niti and riti. But Ramayana talks of Ram who follows the rules without thinking. Rule, I don't care. Maryada Purushottam Ram. But we all know in life, sometimes you have to break the rule because they are cunning people who will pretend to follow the letter of the law but do not respect dharma. And for cunning people, you need a cunning God. And so Krishna appears. And therefore Mahabharata is the story of Seema Ullanghan. So Leela Purushottam Krishna. So you have Maryada Purushottam Ram and Leela. So two different ways in which dharma sthapana happens. One follows the rules and establishes dharma. The other breaks the rule and establishes dharma. So that is why they say dharma is sukshma. And then you realize Ramayana is the story of dharma sthapana. A helpless woman is being abducted by a powerful man who is called a Vedic scholar. Ravana is, why do they call him a Vedic scholar? That means he knows the meaning of dharma. Even though he knows the value of dharma, instead of helping the helpless, he is finding ways to oppress the helpless. She is all alone in the forest. He is tricking her. Dharma sthapana. Surpanakha desires Ram. Desire cannot be controlled, but in the society there are rules. Marriage becomes important. In the jungle, that is not a concept. She is a creature of the forest. She doesn't understand this. She said, jungle mein, the strong, if I am strong, I will get the man I want. If I am beautiful, I get the man. These people are not from the jungle. They don't understand this language. There's tension. Her nose is cut. After Surpanakha's nose is cut, Ram has no happiness in his life. That is how karma is explained. Even if you think you have done something right, there are consequences. So karma and dharma are being explained in a very simple story. Ram also has to suffer the consequences of his actions. Good or bad is not the question. Karma is karma. What you do, you will pay the price for it. Consequences. It is not a judgment. Judgment day, Qayamat, is a Islamic concept, is a Christian concept. It doesn't exist in Sanatana, in India. In Buddhism, Jainism, they don't have the concept of God as judge. There is no concept that God is your judge. God is an accountant. What does it mean? He is maintaining a record of your debt. Rina. If you have, Yamaraja is only like a CFO. Looks and says, Rina hai, go back to take birth. Till you don't pay the debt, you will not get mukti. Accountant. So when Surpanakha's nose is cut, Rina has happened. And Ram is bound by it. And the circumstance after circumstances, things go wrong. Right, wrong, you can argue forever. It doesn't make a difference to karma. Karma doesn't care. So Indian scriptures must not be understood using right, wrong, good, bad, halal, haram. It has to be understood through karma and dharma. Karma is whether you do good, whether you bad, there are consequences, which may be good, which may be bad. So you may accidentally help someone without wanting to, and you'll get the benefit of it. By mistake. So you'll hear stories in the Purans later where you go on top of a tree, a thief goes on top of a tree, and by mistake the bale patta falls on Shiva and he goes to Shivlok. And you'll say, how is that? That's not fair. That's not justice. And I'm like, justice is not an Indian concept. See all those rich neighbors of yours, what have they done to be rich? Nothing. What to do now? Sita thought she was marrying a great man who's going to keep her in the palace, live royal life, every day in the morning, go to the spa. No, Vanavas. Did she know that at the time of wedding? As many of you all would have discovered. Karma, dharma is explained like this. This is what is there. We have to understand how these epics are explaining dharma, karma. They're trying to communicate household life. When you see the epics together, it becomes exciting. And that is the cornerstone of the book. Because when you read Ramayana and Mahabharata very, very, very carefully, you realize it is almost the same story. You say, how Ramayana is different? All these people will say Ramayana is idealistic and Mahabharata is realistic. Have you heard young people say that? Usually IIT engineers. Then I realized that being good in mathematics doesn't mean you're good in literature and philosophy. Very important to remember. What happens is, in both the stories, one thing is very important. Problem starts when a king goes hunting after a deer. In Ramayana, Dashrath goes hunting, thinks it is a deer, shoots the arrow, turns out to be Shravan Kumar, gets the curse that he is going to lose his sons. Mahabharata, Pandu goes hunting, shoots a deer, it turns out to be a rishi, and they curse him, you will not touch your wife, otherwise you will die. Putra viyog, और यहाँ पे conception भी नहीं होएगा. Mriga leads to marga. Always. Ram goes after golden deer, and we know what happened. So the moment See, now when you look at this, is this historical or dramatic? Is it historical record or is it a drama that the moment you say the king goes hunting in the forest, everybody in the audience gets up? Abhi kuch hone wala hai. Where else have you heard this? Shakuntalayam. Look at this, it's called a recurring motif. Like in Hindi films, Bollywood films, boy and girl in a room and it starts to rain. We all know, na? Immediately the children's eyes have to be covered. Nowadays it doesn't matter. They see everything on WhatsApp. So all that is gone. That is what I'm saying. This, you suddenly realize what is happening. The story which we are told repeatedly is now having structures which are common to both. Both the Ramayana and Mahabharata, the first chapter deals with the birth of the heroes, their upbringing till the point of crisis. And it is all, in both the cases, it is about kings who don't have children. Then they find they have children and the children are raised in a school. So you have Vishwamitra and Vasishtha in Ramayana. You have Dronacharya and Kripacharya in Mahabharata. The children are raised. Crisis happens. Ramayana, the crisis is Kaikai. In Mahabharata, the crisis is the Sabha, the gambling match. So the first chapter of Mahabharata is very long. It ends with the Sabha Parva. The gambling match is where the central story is. And over here, in the Ramayana, the story is Kaikai on the day of coronation saying, my son should be king and Ram should go to the forest. Both stories, hero's birth, education, becomes king or is about to be crowned king, something goes wrong. That's chapter 1. Chapter 2, Vanavas. In one place 14 years for no fault of his. In the second 13 years but for their own fault. They have made the mistake. They gambled. They are complaining, 14 years in the forest, and Markandeya at that time tells them a Ramayana story and says, Ram didn't gamble his kingdom. It just happened. But he never complained like you people are complaining. That is why he is avatar. You are not. He did not complain. Ayodhya's Ram and Aranya's Ram were both calm. You are crying and screaming and shouting. Who gambled? You did. See the difference. So the same but different. Vanavasa, 13 years. What is happening in 13 years in Ramayana? Ram is traveling and meeting all the rishis and talking to rishis. He's meeting Vasishtha, he's meeting Atreya, he's meeting Agastya. He's learning. What is he learning? He's learning in the forest. Like the Buddha, he's wandering in the forest. Meeting gurus. Same thing the Pandavas will do. They will meet a lot of gurus. And what is interesting is, if you read carefully the Aranya Parva in the Mahabharata, it is a training program for kings. Arjun is an arrogant prince. He is defeated by a tribal man called Kirata, who turns out to be Shiva and says, you will be prince, but in the palace. In the forest, you have to fight with me as an equal. He's being told not to be arrogant. Kirata Arjuna. Or Bhima meets Hanuman and he can't lift up the tail and he's told again, don't be an arrogant prince. And you suddenly realize Vanaparva, in the forest is teaching you humility. Matsya Nyaya. The purpose that kings exist. What is Rajadharma? To help the helpless. Not to take advantage of power. So look at Ram all the time. And then you have the Pandavas who are trying to be like Ram but not. Look at Yudhishthira, Yaksha Prashna. His brothers are told, don't drink that water. It belongs to me, royal family, we don't care, we'll drink. They die. Yudhishthira learns, respect, it is not your property, it's someone else's property. Have the decency to ask permission. See the word arajakta, property rights. They're talking about property rights. But they're telling, but we don't explain Yaksha Prashna like this. Everything is spiritual. Everything is Atma. I'm Brahman. They're talking about property rights. Very simple. Respect property rights. And then Dharma asks Yudhishthira a question. Who will you save? Only one brother. And he says, I will save Nakula. Why? Because Madri's son. Now that's such a nice story. We forget in the gambling match, the first person who he throws is Madri's son. That part nobody tells us because we have been told by B.R. Chopra that Yudhishthira is good. Vyasa never said it. Vyasa didn't say good or bad. He said, look, when he was gambling and he was cornered, the first person to sell is the half-brother. Sautela Bhai. In the forest, he has transformed. A transformation has happened. He realizes and he says, first Nakula, first Ma Madreya, then Akauntaneya. This is the subtle sukshma of Dharma, which we don't talk about. We are not told the Ramayana. Everybody wants to be right, wrong, he's right, he's wrong. I'm like, that is not the structure of Indian storytelling. So you have first crisis, then you have Vanavasa, then you have a land where kings are not good. What happens it's called like a dystopia. In the Ramayana, they encounter Kishkinda. They see the land of monkeys. And they see how Sugriva is being treated by Vali. The elder brother, who is supposed to share the kingdom with his brother, is kicked him out because of a misunderstanding. You are stronger than him and your father told you to share the kingdom. So what is Dharma? He is not the smartest guy on earth. Fine. He is stupid. Fine. Why have you kicked him out of the house? That's the question. And in the Mahabharata, the dystopia is the kings, the Pandavas have to work as servants in Virata's palace. It is the only time in the Ramayana and Mahabharata they talk about servants and staff. What happens to Draupadi? Kichaka sexually abuses her. That's what happens to servants. They are sexually exploited. Kichaka, get wine for me. What happens to Nakula Sahadeva? Go and clean the stables. Bhima, who eats, loves to eat, is told you will first cook, serve everybody else, and whatever is left you will eat. Arjuna, the great warrior whom all the women fall in love with him. Wherever he goes, women are coming to him. What happens to him? You shall be a androgynous dancer. You will be a transgendered person. You will not have testicles. You will be a eunuch. You will dance and you will understand what it means to be in the Antapura and how women are treated. What happens to Yudhishthira? He's always honest. And he tells the king, your son didn't win the war. That transgender eunuch, no. Because of him he won the war. And the king looks at Yudhishthira and gives him a slap. The king Yudhishthira is telling the truth for which he gets a slap. And he learns honesty is not the best policy. There is something called Sabha Chaturya. In front of the king, never look at the king, look at his sword. Nobody looks at a politician, right? We always look at the politician's power. Because when the power goes away, nobody looks at him. He knows it. Therefore, the kings are always insecure. This is what they're trying to communicate. These are books of Rajadharma. So when you become a Raja and you are either saying, I belong to Rajavansh, Chandravansh or Suryavansh, the kings will be told, read the Ramayana, training. Read the Mahabharata, understand what it means to be a king, understand what is Dharma. After the Vanavasa, in both stories there is war. In both stories, Ramayana there is war, Mahabharata there is war. But the story doesn't end with the war. After the war, there is something else happening. There is tragedy in both. In both there is tragedy. In the Ramayana, it ends with Sita being banished, children coming back, father-son fighting. Love Kush and Ram, Ashwamedha Yajna, love, and in the end Ram doing Jala Samadhi. So Ramayana is a story which begins with the birth of Ram and ends with the death of Ram. Now look at Mahabharata. War, after the war, tragedy. What is the tragedy? Draupadi has no children. That is the tragedy. And then, when they do the Ashwamedha Yajna, Arjuna has to fight his own son. Who is that? Babruvahana. Your father-son fighting over a horse, their son, father-son fighting. Do you see the structural similarities? Is this accidental? Or it is ghar ghar ki kahani? Or is it Sanatan Dharma? What happened yesterday will happen today, will happen tomorrow, will happen again and again and again and again. You can see it in so many different ways. This is how the Ramayana and Mahabharata is designed. But we are not taught these scriptures in this way. We are told to see it. I get very upset when people write novels and behave like lawyers. Ram was wrong. Sita was right. Ravana was right. Right, wrong, right, wrong, right, wrong. Duryodhana was right. Pandavas were wrong. Karna is good. Krishna is bad. Good. This is not Sanatana. Because here you will see the people who establish Dharma unfortunately have very unhappy lives. Ram establishes Ram Rajya, but his children are being raised in poverty in the forest. So should you do Dharma Sthapana? Krishna does Dharma Sthapana. What happens to him? He gets Gandhari's curse. Nirvansh. Your entire family will die. You'll watch them die in front of you. You will not get it. And you will die. Prabhu ho pashu ki maut maroge. You will be killed like the king who hunts the deer. By a vyadha. A hunter, not a king. A king shoots a deer. But Krishna will be shot by a hunter. Do you see the poetry in this? The irony in this? What are they trying to say? Karma, dharma, two different things. Just because you do good deeds doesn't mean you will reap. You know, everybody says karma is as you sow, so you reap. That's a biblical line. In Sanatan Dharma, you don't know what you sow and you don't know what you reap. You think your son is an apple tree. It turns out to be guava. Or maybe tamarind. But you say you want to make mango juice out of it. And then you get disappointed. Oh, he's not a mango. Let's turn him into a mango. Let's take him to a doctor. Let's try to do something. Because mangoes are valued in the market. And that is how dukkha happens. We are all tamarinds. And our parents thought we were mangoes. Therefore, they were disappointed. This is how Maya is explained. We don't see the world as it is. This is how Ramayana and Mahabharata is written through storytelling. They're explaining dharma. They're explaining karma. They are explaining rina. They're explaining moksha. They're explaining maya. They're showing the limitations of Vidya. The greatest Vedic scholar, Ravana, who knows astrology, who knows Vastu Shastra, but doesn't know one thing. There is something called consent. Even now men don't know. According to some people, there are filmmakers who actually say, if you love somebody, you can slap them. And I say, wake up every morning and slap yourself. Clearly you don't love yourself. Consent. Ramayana is about consent. Surpanakha is telling Ram, I want to have relations with you, but you don't have his consent. And you refuse to listen. See the gender equality. Ravan is also trying to pick up Sita. So it is not just only toxic masculinity, it's also toxic femininity. It is it's gender neutral. Surpanakha and Ravana are behaving exactly the same way. They are not respecting consent. And both cases they are creating horror stories. And the victim is suffering. Ram is the victim, but he has to suffer his entire life because Lakshman disfigures Surpanakha. Because even if she is wrong, you have no right for himsa. And Ravana's entire kingdom is wiped out. He lets his brothers die, his children die, his city burns. But people say, no, but I think Ravana is a good person. And I'm like, no wonder we talk about that toxic masculinity. Samajh nahi aata hai consent. I'm not interested. No, when girls say no, they actually mean yes. Valmiki has written about it. Vyas has written about it. Draupadi being dragged and brought into the court and being shamed, and Bhishma and all are discussing whether it's right or wrong as per law. Hello? What is wrong with you? Don't you all have eyes? If the Kulavadhu of the royal family is being treated like this, which woman is safe? That's why the story of Kichaka. That is the story of Jayadratha. Draupadi's story is because if the king doesn't respect his own sister-in-law, why will anybody respect anybody? So how can you say Dharma Sthapana in Hastinapur? There is no Dharma. You don't respect the helpless. See how they've used metaphors. They're talking about feminism. They are talking about queer ideas. You have stories from the Mahabharata like Shikhandi and Brihanalla, which is talking about transgenders. In the Ramayana, you have stories which are talking again about transgenders, you're talking about homosexual, and these are all written what, 2,500 years ago? All ideas that we consider modern are being talked about because they're not thinking in terms of modern, they are saying human beings are like this. We will fall to our Pashu Prakriti. We want to dominate. We want to be territorial. We love having pecking orders. Dharma Sthapana is overcoming the animal instinct. The desire to dominate. The desire to be territorial. And it is not easy. If Ravan can't do it, where can we be? And the struggle that even if the Vedacharya can't do it. In Ramayana, Ravan's head is cut by Ram. In Mahabharata, Dronacharya is a teacher. He's a Brahmin. His head is being cut by Krishna. In both there is Brahma Hatya. Because they are not teaching Dharma. Look at the structure in the Mahabharata. The three great Maharathis of the Kauravas. There is Bhishma. Then there is Drona. Then there is Karna. Who is their teacher? Parshuram. Vishnu. Such a good teacher, but they didn't learn Dharma. So Krishna says, I have to now repair my own damage. Dharma is very different from Hinsa, Ahimsa. The complexities are being discussed in the Ramayana and Mahabharata. I can go on and on talking about this. But the easiest way to understand this is buy my book. Thank you so much. Thank you. Depending on time, I'll let the moderators decide. Maybe we can take 2-3 questions.
Hello, sir. Excuse me.
Should we send Kumaraswamy to forest?
Oh, let the mic come to you.
Sir, you said Ram was a great king who was following all the dharma. But when he knew his wife was pure, why did he send her to the forest?
Look at the statement. You said he knew his wife was pure, then why did he send? Are you saying that if the wife is impure, we should kick her out? I can give all the lecture on Dharma, but this doesn't change.
No, I just want to contradict you because you said he follows the rule. So as per the rules of that day, the rule is that if the wife is infidel or whatever, then you can. So even that rule he did not
You're
apply.
still being a lawyer, no?
No, you said Rama followed the
Okay,
rule,
let's
right?
now look at a scenario. He says no. My wife is innocent and she'll stay. What do you think the people, the next day the media is going to talk about? राजा है ना, देखा पत्नी का साइड ही लिया ना लास्ट में जोरू का गुलाम. How can he be king? He loves her so much that he doesn't care for dharma. You don't think that's going to happen? If I was the editor, I'd do that. What do you think Arnab would do? He will say, oh, such a nice, that is true, yaar. King is right. He is right. The wives is more important than the kingdom. Our gossip doesn't matter. Come on, which world are we living in?
Okay, just one.
The gentleman here. Yes.
Good evening, good afternoon, sir. I'm Dr. Somshetra. Thanks a lot for you for giving us a new interpretation to our great epics. Whatever you have understood, now I feel that we have to go with our eyes and ears open and see in the right perspective.
There's no right perspective. There is my perspective.
No.
You don't have to agree with me. You just have to buy my book.
Certainly, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm commercial. I leave saving the world to Gurujis.
That's what the modern day
No,
Mythology Sutra says. You have to buy at a cost.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir,
One more question and then we'll have to wind up. Yes. Oh, sir. Sure.
1 minute.
Yeah.
You talked about dharma. Usually when they say dharma, they also say nyaya. So you say nyaya is not an Indian concept.
See, nyaya is justice, dharma is something else. Dharma is helping the helpless. So let me give you an example. Somebody has stolen a poor... Have you seen this very famous film called Les Miserables? It's a play, it's a book, it's very famous, everything. It's a poor man who steals. As per law, because he has stolen bread to feed his hungry family, he goes to jail. Now his child is an orphan, he's trying to run away from jail to take care of her. The law says you've broken the law, stay in jail, stay in jail, stay in jail. He's always kept in jail. Is it nyaya or dharma? Think about it. I'll give you another case study now. Okay, let's not use Western ideas. Let's use Vikram and Vetal. You have 3 children. One is extremely smart. If you feed him well, he will solve all the problems of the world. One is disabled. If you don't feed him well, he will die. Third is ordinary, mediocre. You have only one chapati. How will you divide? Try solving this problem. Do this as a workshop. You'll never be able to solve it. No matter what you do, somebody is going to get angry. That is why in India, whenever there's a problem, you first go to the regional court, then the High Court, then the Supreme Court. And even if the Supreme Court tells you, for example, the Supreme Court has recently told that homosexuality is decriminalized. But in the United Nations, the government will not support LGBTQ rights. So even the Supreme Court is not supreme in the country. Which means Nyaya is a very different concept. Dharma is a different concept. Dharma is, do you help the helpless? Even by breaking the law. Robin Hood. So Robin Hood is a criminal, but is he following Dharma? That is taxation, no? All taxation is Robin Hood. Take from the rich and give to the poor, then why are you crying? 47%. We all like Robin Hood stories until it actually happens to us. Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll have Sure.
I think there are quite many last, but I don't know. Anyway, thank you. It was a pleasure listening to you. I'm sad that my wife is not with me. She would have loved to listen to this. So, without your permission, I have recorded this so that I can play to her when I meet her. So, that being beside the point, I'll deviate from the topic of Ramayana and Mahabharata, what you have been talking about. This is something which has been puzzling me. Of course, I have not read, if any, if in any of your book that you have written about this. The thing is that there is a particular perspective which is more these days that they talk about. Maybe you can call it subaltern if you want. So the popular perception is that the heroes or whatever the main protagonists are all fair-skinned, of good birth or good ancestry. And the persons who get killed, they are always from the forest, dark skinned.
Yes.
So what would be your take on it? So what happens is generally the perception is the persons whom we revere as gods or demigods or heroes, they happen to be the people who are representing a particular stream of thought. So what you talked about in the beginning, like where Buddhism grew and then waned and Hinduism waxed. So that particular, what would be your take on it?
You see, I'm very careful of these kind of papers because everybody cherry picks. Krishna is a big god, no? What does Krishna mean? Black. On television serials, is he dark? I have been part of serials where I've been told, Kala aadmi ko nahi lene ka. Fairx baby has to be fat, plump, fair child for Krishna. We will not paint the image black, we'll paint him blue. That is not the problem of God. That is the problem of humans. Ram is called Shyam Varna. Vishnu is called Shyam Varna. What is Shyam? Dark. What is the color of the goddess? She is Shyama. Kali. What does Kali mean? Black. Kali, black. Krishna, black. How did they become fair? Is it fair and lovely? Now look at all the Bollywood films and the Tollywood films and everywhere. The heroes are always dark, but the heroines are always fair. What does it say? So it's nice to blame Valmiki and Vyas, but some problem is closer home. Closer home, always. So this color thing, we don't realize. In India they will use black and white all the time. Ganga is white, Yamuna is black. Shiva is white, Karpura Gauranga. And Vishnu is black. They'll always use black and white to talk about the spectrum of life. So that is the way Sanatana is explained. We don't want to. See, the way Dharma became righteousness, Dharma became justice. Dharma is not justice. Justice as a concept is a very different, it exists in one life cultures. Lady justice, holding the balance, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, doesn't exist in karma. There is no such thing as eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It doesn't exist. It doesn't mean as you so understanding when I read subaltern literature nowadays, it's political. It is not Shastra. Shastra is no politics. The Shastri is a genuine Shastri is neither left nor right. Like a good child, he looks left, he looks right and crosses the road correctly. The moment you become left or right, you stop being a Shastri, you become a Rajniti. So, if you want to be a Shastri, you must stay away from Rajniti. If you are part of Rajniti, you cannot be a good Shastri because of Sabha Chaturya. Because in the king's court, you only have to praise song of the sing, because the king is good at Natya Shastra and at Dhanurvidya. So you have to always agree with the king. A good poet cannot live in the king's court. Ever. So Raja Kavi, never trust him. Remember, Valmiki is in the forest. His children, Lavakush is going and talking to Ram and telling Ram's story to him. And Ram says, I don't recognize this character you're describing. It's a very beautiful line in the Ramayana. Or when we read the Valmiki Ramayana, there is a beautiful line which I always tell people. When Bharat is coming back to Ayodhya, he is saying, there are no lovers in the gardens of the city. Something amangala has happened. Which means in the gardens, if there are no lovers, amangala. Nowadays we have anti-Romeo squads. So what is Mangalyam? Mangalyam is to see young boys and girls in love dancing in the forest. That is Mangala. But we are now going towards Amangala. Because everything is about men. And that is what we don't, that's why when we read subaltern and all these kind of I am not interested in either left or right philosophies, because I feel Purnatva is left and right. Even the Devas and Asuras, as long as they are fighting Manthan, Amrit doesn't come. Only when they collaborate and do Amrit Manthan, does Amrit come. So, as long as you are doing Vivad in the parliament and in academia, no Amrit. So, to get Samvad, I keep telling people, you want Amrit? Read my books. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.